Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are, of course, your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. It is Domestic Cup week. If you're for the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X, we're on Facebook, and we are on Blue Sky too. It's the week where Jason will call me a flip-flop and tell me cup games don't matter. It was all about finishing above 17th. I'm sure he's got the flip-flops ready. He's back alongside me on this show. Also back alongside me on this show, two of our wonderful returning regular guests. The Last Word on Spurs. We are firmly in fixture mode. They are coming thick and fast back alongside us. Also, we've got the wonderful Billie T in the house. Bill, lovely to have you here. The games are coming thick and fast. How are you, mate? I'll let you unmute and get us underway. How are you, mate?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. I'm going on Wednesday, actually, so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be my first ever game in corporate. I've never done it before.
Ooh. Interesting.
Making most of them cheap tickets, my friend. So, yeah, I'm buzzing.
Be careful when you put those kind of words in corporate, Bill. I tell you on this kind of show. Lovely to have you back alongside us. Also back on the show, he dresses if he's corporate. He always brings the corporate speech to this show when it comes to the finances. We've got the wonderful Connor over at Min-hyeok 1882. He might whack me for that one. Con, how are you, mate? Lovely to be back alongside us.
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. Thank you for having me on. And as I said to you backstage, it's nice to be on to actually talk about football rather than corporate stuff. So yeah, good to be on and good to be on with Billy and Jason as well.
Absolutely,
yeah, and I think we'll have to raise a drink together, Connor, after what's happened since we last spoke online. Definitely,
we will.
You might need a name change as well, mate. But
well,
it's discussing a few options offline as well, online as well.
What's the legacy handle? Min-hyeok 1882. That's going to change at some point, which is only in the world of Spurs sphere. Because Cos only been on here for the last however many months so far, and Daniel Levy steps down, which is quite crazy because the world has moved so fast now where even that now feels, to some degree, quite old news. But I did keep saying is that you'll still feel that Daniel Levy's name is going to pop up from time to time because naturally...
There's rumours.
Go on, Dad. Go on, Bill.
There's rumours at the weekend that he's got a stadium ban. Did anyone see that? He's not allowed in the stadium, apparently.
Well, oh, interesting.
Imagine that.
Interesting. Okay. There you go. It's still listen. Whenever you think it's a quiet, Jason looks stunned. Should Jason really be stunned? He's been here for Last Word on Spurs for the last 8 years. Should anyone be really stunned what comes out on this show? We're only a couple of minutes in. So look, whenever you think there's a quiet moment, there's never a quiet moment. It's Last Word on Spurs. Anything can happen at any time. Listen, if you're with us for the very, very first time, you can find us. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we are across all major audio platforms. If you can keep liking, keep subscribing to the show, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated. A rundown on this show of what we're going to be bringing you in this next hour and a bit. We'll be discussing Thomas Frank's start to life at Spurs. What have we made of it so far? Are we ahead of the curve? Are we behind? Are we where we expected to be? Yes, there's a lot of excitement around Javi Simmons in a Spurs shirt, what he's done so far and what is to come. Has he nailed down the mask of that number 10 position already following a really, really good second half cameo, which of course saw Spurs rescue a point, of course, at the Amex. We'll be discussing the importance of the Cups. Jason made that very, very clear the early part of the season, the importance of the Cups, that is for sure. As we go into, of course, Domestic Cup week, Carabao Cup action in store for Tottenham, Doncaster on the horizon. How many changes should we make? How do you get the right balance? How do you not disrespect the competition that we want Spurs to take seriously during the course of the season? How is Frank going to manage the squad? Will we come on to that and more? Some really fascinating stats in comparison to Frank's time at Brentford and how he dealt with the Cups and how he may deal with them during his time at Spurs. And of course, it's never a quiet moment for Spurs in terms of the injury front. And for those that did miss the news, Kolo Muani, of course, missed Tottenham's latest game with a dead leg, which is still a phrase that you use out there, a dead leg. And the irony is that I don't think Kolo Muani has missed a game or only missed one in the last 2.5 years. He comes to Tottenham and he's crocked with immediate effect. So welcome to Tottenham, Kolo Muani. That is the nature of being at Tottenham. Right, we're going to steer the show in the direction of Tottenham's start to this Premier League season. Now, Spurs, of course, went up to the Amex on what was Saturday now, where we went to a Brighton side that were unbeaten at home against the Premier League traditional Big Six since the start of last season. Having, really given all of them a real good game with draws only against Arsenal and now Spurs and dispatching of the rest of them. Bill, I'll start with you because you said, I think after the game being on your X account, that bearing in mind, we were 2-0 down, We come off the back of a Champions League game where I think we could see the hangover of that on the first half. The resilience, the character the team showed, the game-changing nature of Javi Simmons. It feels like we came away with a really, really good point. Would you agree? How's your reflections now, 24, 48 hours on?
Yeah, definitely a good point. I think there were other results this weekend would have helped that as well. Today, again, we're still in joint second place. I know the league table doesn't mean much 5 games in the season, but Thomas Frank called it our best performance of the season, actually, after the game. I think not sure I quite agree with that. I think probably the Man City game was better, but it was definitely a good performance. Definitely a game that we dominated. Definitely a game that we deserve to win. In a ground that we do terribly. And last time I was on here, actually, I did say if we're gonna, draw one of the games in that run that we had, this is probably the one. Because now we've got some really good fixtures coming up. I think the next run of games are Doncaster, Wolves, and Bodo Glimt the next 3, isn't it? Which you'd imagine that'll be 3 wins. It should be anyway. Disappointed if it's not 3 wins out of 3 there. So this is, you can afford to draw these kind of games sometimes. So yeah, definitely good result. More encouraging for me was the performance probably than the result, because we were a lot more attacking yesterday than we have been in some of the games. Particularly the Bournemouth game was a real sort of eyesore. Hopefully a blip. It wasn't like the Bournemouth game at all yesterday. I don't think we weren't deserving to be losing. We did deserve to. We were the better team yesterday. So yeah, really good point. Good performance. I know we'll talk about it a bit more in detail, but I think it's been a pretty good start for Thomas Frank.
Yeah. I mean, just Bill, from your perspective, are we kind of where you expected us to be? Are we ahead of the curve, Bill, in thinking of obviously what was going on with the summer, the transition to Frank? I mean, where would you say we are in terms of the project under Frank for you?
Ahead of the curve, no doubt. I think you'd be mad to not say that. I think because in terms of the opposites of managers, they're pretty much two polar opposites, aren't they? And just very dogmatic to attacking football. I love that. But Thomas Frank's come in to change it completely. The fact that we're unbeaten after 5. We've lost 1 game in 5 games. We're joint second. Had a really good performance against PSG as well. Particularly when Thomas Frank had a really slow start at Brentford, really slow start at Bromby. Finished 17th last season. Obviously, got a lot of new players to bed in this summer. I think, this is a big picture, probably about as good as it got. And obviously, Ange had that incredible 10 game run at the beginning of the season. That was, I think, the best ever a new manager has done, until Slot came along and broke it the season after. But in terms of where I was expecting Thomas Frank to be, this is above it currently.
Interesting. Jace, to bring you in, we've had 7 points so far from Brighton, West Ham and City. For many out there, maybe don't come back from 2-0 down under maybe some previous managers. We won our first Champions League game. I think we both agreed at the time wasn't pretty. We do want to see more of an attacking brand of football. It does feel, I just get a glimpse from the fans that there's a lot to be optimistic about. And, only 4 points from the 3 away days last season, to have the record we've had so far. Is it an encouraging start? Are you kind of expecting where we were to be? How much more do you need to see to feel that we are on the right track, if you need to, at this stage, Jason?
I think it's been a decent start, without a doubt. I thought, if I look at the 5 fixtures, probably going into the season, I had us down to be on 11. So, partly because it's strange, I always fancy us to go to City and win. But West Ham, I probably thought we'd take a point. And yesterday, I would have been quite happy to take a point. So I got us down for 11 points and we got on 10. But overall, I think it's been a decent start for sure. We've seen lots of things that we hoped to see from him. Personally, I've looked at us, probably with the exception of the PSG game, we've tried to get on the front foot in every game, which is important for me. Even yesterday, I thought we started the game, went straight at Brighton. We were 2-0 down, but that can happen. So yeah, overall, I think it's been a decent start and lots to build on, mate. Lots to build on. The next few games can put us in a really good position in terms of the league, and then we start hitting the tougher run, October and November.
Do you feel now, Jace, just to come back on that question and ask before I bring Colin there, it feels like these next kind of pivotal game, these next games are pivotal to kind of see how the season shapes up, because we're going to come on to it. The involvement of course, Carabao Cup football, Champions League, putting that into the melting pot, and how Frank is going to deal with the element of rotation and managing that. Like we've both said off air, so he's not used to before. This is going to be a real crucial period to see that, Jace, how he manages that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, when you look at it, It's a nice run. Doncaster, Wolves, Bodo, Leeds, but Leeds got a decent result yesterday, didn't they? And there's strange things even with the Bodo game. I'm not sitting here saying we'll definitely go to Bodo and win in a strange way, but it's important to get points on the board because the teams we expect to be up there with us, they've had rocky starts of the season, so it's a real chance to build that bit of a cushion between us and the rest of them.
Yeah, I agree. Last, I know it's promising times, and Con, just to bring you in, I think the most pleasing aspect that I think many would have felt on the back of the Brighton game is the resilience that the team did show to come back and to get a point at a venue. Let's be honest about it in terms of Brighton, where we said this before. You know, we've struggled there in the past 2 seasons. They're a side, like we've said, have been unbeaten against the traditional top 6 going since the start of last season. And, you know, there could have been a lot of excuses Tottenham could have used that would have maybe been a cover-up as to why they wouldn't have got the result. The fact of maybe having to play their 3rd game in 8 days, when you think about West Ham and Villarreal in there, the fact that Frank was experiencing European competition for the first time, having to embed new players, finding a way to cope, of course, without Dominic Solanke, who at the moment we still don't have a return date in terms of when he's going to be back. Rana Moani on the eve of the game, him messing out with a dead leg. The fact the club concede a couple of goals in the first half an hour, you know, the game could have become quite ugly. But the one thing I can give Frank a lot of credit for, and I think we've seen this a lot, is that there is constant communication with that coaching staff really at all times, Con, on that touchline. And I think that's been one of the key differences I've seen in terms of just players also on the field. I think Romero now, when I see Romero on the field, constant communicator with players around him. Look, we won't get away from it. I know Jason will probably come on to it. Yes, we've been done by another high-line goal. So that still is there. We're going to work on that. We don't want to see Mickey keep sprinting back, you know, every week. That can't happen. But I mean, how impressed have you been, Con, by the start Spurs has made and the fact they came back against Brighton at the Amex to get that valuable point?
Yeah, very. I think the guys have touched on it. I think for me, when I sort of reflect on Frank's start, and look, we can't forget that we did finish 7th, 8th, albeit it was a bit of a freak, and obviously there was injuries and other reasons. But there was a lot of room to make up, right? And I think optimistically, when we look at those first 5 Premier League games, you'd have expected to beat Burnley. I know we always beat City, but I don't think you would necessarily bank on us winning at City away. Bournemouth, we know, was disappointing. West Ham away, we hadn't won there since Mourinho, and we hammered them, no pun intended. And then Brighton, as you said, our sort of record at Brighton in recent times has been pretty horrific, right? So I think it's been a fantastic start. I think, what was pleasing for me with the Brighton performance, perhaps more so than what we've showed so far, I think it was the best that we've been on the ball. I think in the City game, obviously we were fantastic and held an amazing shape, pressed well, didn't give them any chances. But for me, I thought in the Brighton game, going 2-0 down at half time was a bit of a, 2-1 because Richarlison equalised just before. But, going down 2-0 was really undeserved. There was that, as you say, that goal that was a toenail away from being offside. And then, Vicario should have done better with the Brighton second goal. And it was a poor clearance by Bergvall. But I thought we played decent in the first half and then really, really well in the second half. And I'm sure, we're going to talk about Simmons later, but Simmons made a huge impact in the 10. Kudus was particularly good in the second half. So I think there's a lot to like. I think the stability and how solid we look now generally is a massive, massive plus. And, I think if I sort of compare Frank's start to Andrew's start, obviously Andrew's start was fantastic, but it felt a little bit like, we took the league by storm a little bit just because teams didn't really know this sort of inverting both fullbacks at the same time. And Andrew's sort of philosophy took the league by storm a little bit. Whereas I think with Frank, you're starting to see, okay, this is a proper coach who's really adaptable, playing different ways. And I think where we're going to see hopefully the most development is being creative from open play, and that's going to come in time, hopefully. Unfortunately for us, I think the left winger is still an issue, and we don't have that, top left winger we wanted to sign in the summer, which would have made that impact. But no, definitely a great start, and I think there's a lot to be positive about.
Before I go back over to Bill, Jason, to come over to you, I'm intrigued to know from you, what will be the key learnings that Frank would have maybe taken away from these opening 5, 6, 7 games? Because let's be honest about it. There's been some really good moments in there. There's also been some moments as well we can't get away from. I said it in the earlier part of the show. We're still considering that goal over the top from the high line. That hasn't gone away to some degree. It'll be interesting to see that's going to be worked on. And I think, again, Frank has admitted in a lot of the press conferences that there needs to be more of an emphasis on playing, a lot more higher up the pitch, trying to have a more offensive threat. Can you see that coming together, Jason? Is that going to come in time? Where are you on that for you? Are you seeing those learnings taking place in this such early stage for you at the moment?
I think it comes with time. I think at the moment, even with our attacking play, he hasn't been able to work on. We haven't had a settled front three, have we? I think every game it's been, with the exception of Burnley to the Man City game, we've made a change in that front three in every game we've played. So, I mean, yesterday he hadn't given Odebear a start. So we look at what Odebear can bring. You think that Kolo Muani will get a start at some stage, and when Dom comes back, Dom will get a start. So I think he's still trying to find the balance in that front line. I mean, I'm totally opposite you, Rick. I don't give a stuff if we concede a high line goal. You cannot be a high press, front foot aggressive team with your centre backs deep in your own half. If you want to play front foot football, you will concede high line goals. And the irony is that today we've seen a team that are, without a doubt, defensively the best in the league. They've conceded a high line goal. Plenty of times yesterday I saw Liverpool that won the league last season with two centre-backs on the halfway line and both full-backs on the edge of Everton's box. You will concede high-line goals if you're a front-foot aggressive team. And it was interesting that after the game, with Thomas Frank's remarks, he actually didn't have a problem with it being a high-line goal. He said, give credit to Brighton. His problem was more with the second goal than the high-line goal. So, I've seen teams all week in the Champions League. I saw Barcelona go to Newcastle, two defenders on the halfway line, fullbacks deep inside Newcastle's half. I watched Bournemouth today, and plenty of people wanted Iraola as manager. Iraola, two centre-backs on the halfway line, both fullbacks in the opposition half. The key with the high line is that you stop the transition. It's not just the high line. You've got to get pressure on the ball when that pass comes. So your number 6 has got to be in the right position. And a few people have got to sense danger. The high line itself, mate, is not a problem. And, I see lots of goals to high lines from other teams. It baffled me last year that Ange was called high line because, like I say, if you actually look at modern football, any high press team, and I've seen lots in Europe this week, I would say 70%, 75% of teams that I watch play a high line. It's certainly not just unique to Ange Postecoglou. It's the position of the players around that edge of the box. It's Man City used to be brilliant at the tactical foul, didn't they? We used to see who was the Fabinho at Liverpool make the tactical foul to stop the transition. It's stopping the transition, not the high line, that's your problem.
Okay, interesting. Bill, what do you hope to see in these next 10 games, Bill? I mean, I think that's also an interesting point in terms of what is the next kind of phase of progression you want to see under Thomas Frank in comparison to what you've seen in these kind of first 5 or 6 Bills. Anything you really want to see progress very clearly in these next upcoming fixtures?
I think it's going to have to be the rotation, mate. I think it's going to be really tricky to play, to get it right. I think it's a really difficult thing to do. I was talking about it a bit yesterday online. It's really hard to rotate successfully, unless you're sort of Man City or Liverpool or, to a unfortunate extent, Arsenal, and you have that really, really high quality squad where you can sort of swap players in and out, like Man City do, and they bench players like Foden and stuff like that. It's really, really difficult to get right. And in the next, for example, I'm a bit worried by the fact that Van de Ven, Romero could have started every single game for us. We know, doing back to the last 2 years, Van de Ven and Romero playing every game is a ticking time bomb. So I'd like to see how he rotates. We've got some decent fixtures coming up. As I mentioned before, we've got Doncaster, which I doubt any of the first team players will play against. It's a nice little week's rest there. But then we're back into playing in the Champions League again, so it'll be between league games. And while Wolves and Leeds are games that you look to win for sure, you can never be sure in the Premier League. Going Leeds away, you don't get it right with the rotation, they're gonna have you. So it'd be interesting for me. It's the next level is about how he can manage 2 games a week.
Okay, we're going to come on to that because we've got some really fascinating stats during his time at Brentford that Jason's dug up for us. That does that comparison and also gives us a cup comparison as well. Con, one thing I did say before we came on air is that I did that dangerous thing to do of looking at the teams that we want to get back up higher in the league. I know when Jack Pitbrook came here in the summer, Jack's feeling was that for Tottenham, rather than looking at kind of City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, what Tottenham need to focus on is being above the likes of the Brightons, the Aston Villas, and the Newcastle of this world. We look at the very early table, and again, it is a very, very early table. We see Villa floundering in 18th at the moment. We see Newcastle 13th, Brighton 14th right now. Where are you, Con, in terms of maybe where Spurs will look at this season as being a pinpoint of where they can aim and achieve, and whether that's changed in your mind at the start of the season to now? Has your feeling changed on that, given now we've seen everybody, 5 times so far this season in terms of the Premier League?
Yeah, a little bit, not much. I think probably before the season properly got into full swing and by the end of the window, I think I was sort of predicting we could be anywhere from 5th to 8th, depending on what happened with injuries. With being quite cautiously optimistic about making 5th. I think hopefully that'll be a Champions League place as well, depending on what happens with the coefficient this year. But I think 5th is a realistic aim. I think when you look at those other teams, as you just mentioned, obviously Villa have had a particularly bad start. Newcastle have got to contend with Champions League in the same way that we have. United, Brighton, Brighton obviously and United don't have it. I think 5th is definitely a realistic aim for us. But I think Billy just touched on it, on the 3 players that have had to play every game so far. Those are almost the key ones where you don't want to get an injury right now, I think, because those 2 centre halves have formed such a great partnership. And I think Danso's a good 3rd choice, but he doesn't offer what either of those have in their sort of unicorn abilities, as it were, in terms of Romero's passing or Van de Ven's pace. And I think you miss either if either of those are out. And then similarly with Kudus right now, because we are lacking a bit of creativity, and hopefully Simmons will help fix that, and Muani will come in as well. Kudus is our real creative outlet, plus he's also just an outlet in terms of holding the ball up and things as well, right? So I pray no injuries to them. I want to see all 3 of them rotated against Doncaster, that's for sure. And I know we're going to come on to Doncaster, but yeah, I think fifth is definitely a realistic aim. Okay,
interesting. Jace, just to ask you on that point, in terms of, I know again it's early tables at this stage, but I think what's very intriguing that we spoke actually before we started is that a lot of the teams that we were expected to be around this season are all going to have to maybe contend, I think, bar Brighton, with some form of aspect of European football. So again, I know it's early stages when we look at this kind of early table 5 games in. What do you think, based on what you've seen from Thomas Frank Spurs in the opening period so far of games? Has your mindset changed or shifted at all in terms of what is achievable in terms of a league position so far this season, Jace?
I think going into the season, I said 5th to 6th is achievable, depending on what happens with other competitions. But I think there's a great chance for 5th, 6th, and I still think that's the case, for sure. I think, whilst we're in Europe, will we be in the latter stages of it? When it gets to quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals, will Newcastle be in the quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals of the Champions League? I'm not sure, but I'd look at Villa and think there's a great chance for them to be involved in the quarterfinals, semi-finals and things of the Europa League. I'd say, any of the English teams in the Europa and the conference competitions have got a great chance to be involved in Europe right to the back end of the season. So for where we want, probably for 5th, 6th, I think there's definitely a chance for us, for sure.
Do you share that optimism as well, Bill? I mean, if I was to ask you before the season started, I know we did ask you in terms of our position. I know you was also fairly confident, Bill, that potentially the club might be able to do quite significantly well in the league. I just wonder on that point, Bill, as Bill is just refreshing there, do you share that confidence, Bill? 5 games in, we look at the table right now. I know it's early days. From your perspective, I will bring Bill back in. Table-wise, Bill, what do you make of it so far?
Yeah, I mean, very encouraging. I think there's a couple of false positions in there. I'd be very surprised if the front three does not involve Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City. I think City will, they showed today. I know they ended up drawing in the end, but I know Haaland's on an insane run of form. I think we're the only team that he's not scored against this season so far. So I think that'll be the top three without a doubt. But I think anything from fourth downwards is wide open. I think the real surprise of Newcastle, Villa, and some of the Man United again look a bit dodgy as well. Look a bit. I think it's wide open. I really fancy us to get one of those 2, 4th or 5th. And I think Connor's right. As long as the coefficient goes our way, that'll be Champions That'll be a great season. I think the biggest surprise for me so far is Chelsea. I thought they were pretty nailed on for that 4th spot, but haven't really impressed that much in the league this year. A lot of fans are calling for Maresca after yesterday, so it's wide open now. I think we can jump in there, hopefully.
It's interesting because, again, when I think we were looking at the earlier part of the season before we kicked off and we did our kind of previews, I think a lot of us were kind of reluctant to go too overboard in terms of what is achievable through the league this season. But I think given the fact that we've seen particularly slow starts for, I think, Villa, maybe many people didn't see that coming, although, again, with Villa, they had quite a difficult summer transfer window in terms of trying to bring players in and they're going to have to reintegrate players. Does it feel a potential real good opportunity, Con, that maybe we didn't expect to maybe present ourselves very early on, that if we can maintain what's been a decent Premier League start so far, we could maybe surprise ourselves that if we are able, we're going to come onto it shortly, be able to manage and rotate accordingly. Premier League, Champions League. And I keep saying this, we just need to get past match day 10 at Chelsea and the full half squad completely, utterly disrupted and injured. I mean, if we get past Chelsea at match day 10, can we slowly start to look over the horizon of what could be a really promising Premier League season? If we get across that Chelsea game, we don't have a significant amount of injuries, which we all like laugh, but it's been the case for the last couple of seasons. We've had a lot of decimation this last season, that Chelsea game being match day 10. It's crazy, but it's true.
Yeah. I think I agree with what the guys are saying. I think it's a really, really good opportunity for us this year. I think I think it's important as well. I think, Rick, when we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago on your show, I was saying, and it does feel like you're saying this every year, but I think it's a really, really critical season to make sure that we do cement that Champions League place again. Because we've seen in the window that we've just had that although it wasn't quite enough, at least the players that we did bring in were of a much improved quality and caliber, and you want to obviously see that again, and we'll all be watching that as the future windows come, right? But with Newcastle as well, I think we spoke about this. Newcastle aren't going to have the PSR limitations following selling Isak that they have had for the last couple of windows. So, they are going to go big, I would presume, in the summer as well. So, we really need to cement ourselves back as that sort of regular Champions League team, with then looking obviously to hopefully kick on and do more. So, I think it's a really, really critical season. I think it's a really, really good opportunity to the point you mentioned. And then, and look, I think fans are going to have to get used to this rotation as well, right? I think I saw some comments in response to the team that was selected for the Brighton game, of why isn't X playing and Xavi's been left out, and we all wanted to see Simmons play, and we're going to come back to him. But obviously he's trying to get him up to speed. He put him out on the left to start with because, one, we didn't have a left winger, and two, I think he probably felt that's a better way for him to get used to the physicality of the Premier League without being in the centre of the pitch. And he has played a lot of games out on the left as well anyway. So look, I think we as fans are all going to have to get used to this. And it's the only way that you can make sure that injuries don't happen. And I do genuinely think that our squad generally in certain positions is thicker than it has been in the past, and the players coming in are of a better standard than they have been. If you look at particularly in that midfield in terms of the number 8s, there's not a lot to choose between Bergvall, Sarr and Bentancur. It just depends on what game you're playing and how they play. So there's other positions where we've got a lot less depth, and that's where you're seeing that lack of rotation. But I think it's all promising signs, and it's really nice to come on this stream and actually be positive talking about Tottenham again. It's certainly feels a long time coming.
Yeah, it's weird because it's almost like a pinch yourself feeling at the moment that we aren't having crisis sessions right now. Things seem to be more calm waters, but it is Tottenham, so you never ever quite know what is round the corner. But in terms of the start Frank has made, it's a promising one. He's not the only one that's made a promising start. Javi Simmons has also made a promising start. We're going to come over to Javi as we do go for our first break of the show for our listeners that are on audio, let's take you behind the scenes of showing you a little bit of Thomas Frank's team in training and some of those defensive drills the team have been working on.
It's all the way up into Wellesley here for that 1v1, close your legs, finish. Go. How many? So, Bello. Go! Yes! 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 Good! Get in line, get in line! Yes! Good! Together! Yes, Mikey! Good! Up, up! Yes, Richie! Yes, yes, yes! Yes, come on! Yes, Luca! Yes! Yes! Pepe! Yes!
Well, there you go. That's a snippet taken from the early part of the summer, which gives you an idea in terms of the defensive drills Spurs were doing under Thomas Frank very, very early on, and they seem to be obviously working in terms of what we've seen so far in this, of course, Premier League season under him. Listen, we're joined by Jason McGovern back alongside me. We're joined by Billie T. We're joined by Connor over at Levonomics 1882. Guys, thank you so much. We've got over 4,500 of you watching us live. As always, thank you ever so much for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs, as we do really start to accelerate now in terms of fixtures and what is to come. And it feels that the Javi Simmons appreciation is only growing and growing now by the day. And there's a lot of love for him at this early part of the season and a willingness to see more. And we are going to talk about Javi Simmons next and how we are going to see him be integrated in terms of both Premier League and where he'll be introduced Champions League and Cup games. And will he be in that number 10? Guys, if you can keep liking and subscribing, that would be greatly appreciated. Let's start, if we can, with you, Bill. There's a lot of excitement in the air for Javi Simmons, rightly so, after, of course, that wonderful second half display against Brighton. Obviously, many now are clamouring the fact he is got to be played at number 10 and the number 10 only. Is it fair to say, Bill, that he dragged us back into that second half to some degree? He was the real, it feels, key factor behind how Spurs did get themselves a point by his driving force with the ball that helped us, of course, get that late equaliser against Brighton at the Amex.
Yeah, I think so, mate. And that was it was just when you sign a player of that level, that kind of money, that kind of profile, that's what you want to see, right? You want to see them take the game by the scruff of the neck, and that's exactly what he did. I think he came on, had a shot after about a minute, and then another minute later he forced a really good save. And a few minutes later he slipped in an unbelievable pass to Richarlison, which Bergvall intercepted, unfortunately. It was just way more positive. It reminds me of my, I know he gets sometimes a bit of a bad reputation, but Maddison, my favourite player, just always trying to do something with a goal scoring action, either assisting or shooting or something like that. That's my kind of player, man. I really think we missed James Maddison a lot when he's injured, but now we've finally got someone else that sort of has that sort of both eye for goal and a bit of creativity as well mixed in one. Really, really encouraging. I think the only thing that worries me slightly is, because we don't have an elite left winger at the moment, I think he might get shipped out onto the left quite a bit until hopefully January when we buy one. But he looked really good in the 10. And that's the kind of performance that when we signed him, everyone was getting, we were on the show, my friend, going crazy, weren't we? Buzzing. Everyone was buzzing that night. Yeah. And that's why. Yeah. This is what we wanted to see.
Yeah. I mean, Jason, I know with any kind of player that comes in and makes an immediate impact, I know you're one that does kind of give an element of calmness to some degree. It is early days and we've got to bed him in. How do you see Frank using him moving forward, Jace? Is he that designated 10? As Billy said there, will there be chances where he will frown back out wide and either flank, given maybe the deficiencies on some of the flanks? I mean, when you said it before the show to me, Jace, we've got so many wingers in the squad. It's going to be hard to keep everybody happy and give Javi Simmons that designated role. But it just feels, when you look at that Brighton display, it's very hard to argue against the fact, I know it's only the one game, that he does seem to be very comfortable in that 10. Would you agree from what you've seen so far? That role feels like his own at the moment?
Well, I think part of him going in there yesterday was we're chasing a game. when he comes on the pitch, we need the goal to get back in the game. I'd be surprised if Thomas Frank was to play, and so we kind of go 4-2-3-1 yesterday. But Thomas Frank's shown, in the first Premier League games and that European game that he'd sooner take that safety of three solid midfield players, if you like. So we've played 4-3-3. So I think if Thomas Frank sets up in a 4-3-3, I think Xavi Simmons is going to have to come in from the left, as you saw the setup against Villarreal. And I don't see that changing immediately, if I'm honest. I mean, maybe with Wolves next week, he might think, look, they haven't got a point, or they haven't got a point yet, have they, Wolves? They lost every game, Wolves. Yeah. So possibly he'll go 4-2-3-1 at home. Possibly he'll go 4-2-3-1. But I don't see him going to places like Leeds and Everton and places like that and going 4-2-3-1 yet. Okay. I think he'll still want us to know that he can trust Xavi Simmons to do a little bit more of the defensive work before he feels, okay, I'm confident enough to play him in the middle of a three in midfield. So I think there'll be a little bit of getting to an adjustment, because if he does play in the 10, who is then going to play on the left? We've still got that little bit of imbalance. So I think it will take time before Thomas Frank says he's my out-and-out number 10 for sure.
Yeah, it was quite interesting on that point, Jason, you mentioned there, coming over to you, Con, is that Frank's been insisting pretty much since he's come to the club that he can play multiple positions. But, there will be that coming, won't there, that based on that cameo we saw against Brighton, it's hard to argue that he doesn't start as a 10. I think in the summer, as we know, the fact that around the world publicised chase of Everett, Eze, Gibbs White, there was maybe a feeling how would Simmons adapt to the league. But I think the great thing we saw against Brighton is that he knew the right moment to dribble. He knew the right moment to make that simple pass to a teammate. I think that's why there's already that confidence to some degree, Con, when it comes to the fans already having maybe such high expectations for a player that has only put on the shirt only a couple of times at this point, Con.
Yeah, I think, sometimes you just watch a player and just even the way they receive the ball, you just go, look, that's a top player. You can just see it, the body shape when he receives the ball, turn on the half, turn, can beat a player. And Bill's right, because I'm also a huge fan of Maddison, and I think it gets a unfair press from our fans, because I think sometimes if you play in the 10 position, you're inconsistent, and that's the case with that's the case with 10s across the league. Bruno Fernandes is inconsistent, right? And Eriksen was when he was at Spurs, etc. So I think they sometimes get a hard press because they're trying to do the hardest thing in football, right? Which is create goals. It's easy to run around and point and play sideways passes when you're trying to beat players and create goals and open teams up that are playing low blocks. That's the hardest thing to do. But yeah, I think with Simmons, look, I think he just oozes class for me. You've seen glimpses of it when he was out on the left, and then as the guy said, when you saw him in the Brighton game, he did change the game when he came on. I think for me, look, I would actually be disappointed if he didn't play in the 10 against Wolves in particular. You're playing Wolves at home. There should be no reason that we need to set up with, the sort of free in midfield that we have been doing, and particularly when you've got a Paulinho as well, who's an absolute monster in terms of that defensive ability and keeping the team solid. Absolutely, I think you can play a midfield three of, say, Paulinho, Bergvall, Simmons, and I think we'll need to do that actually against teams. I think when we're playing City away and Arsenal away and Liverpool, these teams, then yeah, it makes sense to put Simmons out on the left, I think, and to play that more secure midfield. But where we are going to have 60% possession against the Wolves at home, we need that player who can unlock the doors. So yeah, I hope against Wolves at home, Xavi Simmons does play in the 10. And I think, to be honest, I think Frank has almost been forced to play this way with the midfield so far, because Simmons had only just joined, right? And so now, as he's slowly getting up to speed, we actually have a number 10 now. So yeah, it'll be interesting. I think he's a super exciting player, and I think Kudus will also benefit, who's already been brilliant for me, and has made a great start at Tottenham. I think he will massively benefit from Simmons being in the 10 as well, because it gives him someone to play off as well. So yeah, it's exciting. It's just, as I say, it's a real shame we don't have that super exciting left winger as well, because otherwise I think we'd all be buzzing right now.
I think what's intriguing about that fact is that it feels they were trying, and it'd be interesting, obviously, what they do now in January, because I know me and Jason have been saying this. That's a tricky window, January, to get anyone in a real high caliber, because the nature, and we've said it as well, good players don't normally become available in January. So I think that'll be very interesting to see what they do in terms of that market. But Jason, one thing I want to ask you about that number 10 position, before I come back around and build on it as well, is that I think it's very different playing away than it is at home. There's expectancy at home where teams are going to come at us, Jace, and deploy a low block. How difficult is that going to be for Javi Simmons to have that role as being that player that's going to have to be the one to have that responsibility, that leadership of breaking down the opposition, a player that has only just come to the Premier League? There's 55, 60,000 expectant Spurs fans when we are at home to a team like a Wolves, for example, that may sit back, may be in a low block. I know they've lost every game this season. I know Andy Costa saying to me, shut up, Rick, shut up. But these are games that are going to be tough games. So, I mean, is that in itself quite a task for him, that being deployed as a 10 with a low block, it may be a little bit different to a Brighton away, for example, which I think you were alluding to there?
Yeah, of course it is. And, he's new to the league, so there has to be a little bit of... there has to be a little bit of adaptation to him to understand the physicality, the pace. You look at Florian Wirtz, 115 million. He's left on the bench yesterday for Everton. Eberechi Eze is on the bench today for Arsenal. So, it's not just click your fingers and off it works. He needs to have time and learn. I mean, he's small as well, so the physicality of the Premier League will certainly come as a shock to him. And I also think that's why you might see him come off the left a little bit more at the start before he goes into the middle, just to get him used to a little bit more physicality and the pace of the Premier League. But I think as the season goes on, you'll see more and more consistency from him, and as he gets used to it, you'll see a lot more from him as well. It's just a shame that the one disappointment with him yesterday was when he had the chance, didn't he? And he kind of scuffed it wide, and just a goal would have been perfect way to get him going.
Would have topped it off.
Just surprised that he made such a hash of the chance when it came his way. But I've no doubt that he'll score goals, and come the end of the season, he'll prove his worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's also remember Modric. How long did it take Modric to get used to the Premier League and things like that? It does take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Looks like Rick's gone to the Doncaster game for a ticket in already, hasn't he? Rick, where you gone, boy?
You not got me? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I got you.
Got me okay? You got me? It might be Jason's end. I think Jason might be freezing. I am still here, Jace. I am still here. I think Jason might be freezing. Okay. Bill, I want to come around to you. I'll let Jason come back in and maybe come back out. Bill, Con made a very interesting point there on, of course, Javi Simmons, that you realise a top player very quickly by the way they receive the ball and they take the ball on. Do you feel that, Bill, already with regards to Javi Simmons? Can you already see a player there that already you can see fits the Spurs shirt really well?
Yeah, you can. I think Connor's exactly right. You sort of see someone. I remember it really clearly with Rafael van der Vaart is when I remember it really strongly. And from the very first game he joined us, he looks unbelievable. And let's hope that he has that kind of impact at Spurs. That was one of my best ever transfers. But the quality that he has, really, really good. I just hope that he starts adding some goals, assists. That's what we need. But I'm not too concerned about him. I think, and Jason's right, man. You look at these sort of Wirtz is getting a lot of stick onto it at the moment, and it's not easy to come into Premier League and make a difference straight away. It's really, really difficult. So I've seen it. I'm not really too concerned about Javi Simmons. I think he's going to bring it in for us. You can already tell. And the fact that he's a lot younger than Eze as well. He's 21 years old, a lot younger than Morgan Gibbs-White. Already this quality. It's good for me.
I do want to steer us, if I can, very shortly on to the cup situation, but I just need to give a shout out to a couple of players that have worked really hard so far. Jason, we'll try and see if we can bring you back in, mate. we are going to get Jason back in. We're going to try. Jason, have you got us firstly, number one? Number two? We'll let Jace come in and come back out. I want to quickly give a couple of mentions to Mohamed Kudus firstly. Colin, let me come over to you, Mohamed Kudus. Again, really was involved in both the goals against Brighton. What have you made of him so far in his opening 4 or 5 games? There's kind of rhetoric going around from West Ham fans that he doesn't work hard, doesn't really press, doesn't really offer much. I think so far, I've been pleasantly surprised what he's offered in a Spurs shirt. Would you agree, Con? He's been a very much winning worker so far, Kudus, and that is hopefully because he's really bought into the Frank project very early on here.
I think he's outstanding, to be honest. I think he's, I think when you compare him to what else we've got in terms of on the wings, it's like night and day. I know he hasn't scored yet, and I think we want to see a bit more output from him in terms of scoring. But to be fair, he's been to some extent in terms of our forward positions the lone man in terms of a lot of the play at times. So I think he's made a massive impact straight away. I think he's ridiculously strong. He's almost got that sort of Dembele-esque thing about him where he just doesn't get knocked off the ball. Whenever he has a fullback one-on-one, I think he's going to beat that fullback. And teams are doubling up on him already because they've seen that they're able to do that because we haven't had a lot to offer off the left, or they put another centre back on over there. So yeah, I think for me he's been brilliant, and as I said before, I'm really looking forward to seeing how he links up with, once you get Simmons into the 10, and then perhaps as well, look, Richarlison isn't necessarily the best man to play a 1-2 off of because he can't really hold the ball up particularly well. So I think when you've got perhaps Muani, when Muani gets up to fitness, or even Solanke, who's probably a little bit better than Richarlison at holding the ball up, I think that will make a bit of a difference as well. But yeah, hugely impressed, and I think that was just a bit of West Ham fans about him signing for us, and I think he's going to be a top player, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Frank can develop him as well. I think we've seen what Frank has done with attacking players at Brentford. With Mbeumo, Tony Watkins, the list goes on. So I think the next step for Kudus in terms of really taking that level up will be, being super, super decisive in front of goal and adding a bit more in terms of goals to his game. But yeah, fantastic signing, and shows what happens when you pay both the transfer fee and the wages, and you bring in these established players.
Love that, Con. Thank you so much. We're going to go to Jason, and we are going to go into the cup element of this show. Jason, I want to ask you about Destiny Udogie. There was a first start for him of the season, Destiny against Brighton. Very impressive display. Frank has said he's got a real good complement of fullbacks open to him. Just how good was Destiny Udogie versus Brighton? And does that give you confidence, Jason, that he could really maybe nail down a starting spot in Frank's team, whatever that may look like? Because to be fair, the likes of Spence has been giving him a run for his money. Where are you on Destiny's performance against Brighton, and how good was he for you, Jace?
Well, it was interesting to see that before the game, when they showed the training clips Friday, they showed him one-on-one training, trying to get into areas, and he's delivering on his crossing. So
we've got that coming.
They've obviously done a lot of work. Yeah, they've done that work this week on him. So that shows you where they think the weakness is. I think we've always known his physicality is really high. Plenty of power in him. We just need him to stay free of injury this season, because he struggled last year with injuries, and he's obviously struggled at the start of this season. So good to see him back. The fullback area was my one worry even after the window, because I think we've really only got three fullbacks. I know Ben Davies can go there, but then you see that level drop. So it is important that Destiny, Spence and Porro are going to have to be rotated, and with Jed being able to play left or right, that's going to give the other two rest. But we certainly need Destiny to be fit, and I think whereas we're looking at what Thomas Frank improves in terms of forward players, the question with Destiny has usually been his defensive responsibilities, hasn't it? He's not always been the best defensively, so that will be the area for him to improve. But we need him back, and we need a consistent level of performance from him for sure. And yesterday was the first good one, and long may it continue.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting actually when you cast your mind back, and Jace, you might remember this because you was actually on the show with me at the time. That 3-2 defeat to Brighton last season, many would have actually wiped their mind of it and erased their mind. There was a big Destiny error in there actually that got Brighton back into the game. That again on the day you think, if that doesn't happen, do Spurs go on to win it comfortably, and do we go into a much more calmer October international break? So I just wondered, even Jason, at that point, how much does that play on the player's mind, and whether that does spur him on, pardon the pun, to give the performance he did show against Brighton?
No, I think players put that put that to the back of their mind. It's it's a year ago. Most he's up against different players and things like that. So I don't think that would have played on his mind. Just I think more what was on his mind is it's the first game of the season. Jed's in the England team. Pedro Porro was spoken of in high terms, so I need to perform to get a place in this team. And I think that's really what's on his mind, mate.
Okay, well, look, we're going to go for our next break of the show for our listeners and audio. Jason very kindly didn't actually mean it, but he did really tee it up for us. Let's show you what Destiny has been working on this week with the brilliant Matty Wells in training that 1-to-1. And when we come back, it is all eyes on the cup.
On the right, needing to find my right foot for me to return it. Now, yes, go, break, fast. Good, great ball, good, open, yeah, good, go, Des, go. Good, great ball, sir, perfect, really good, yeah, 2v2, good, that's the position, yes, that's it, Des, great ball, love it, good, Des, 90%, that's where you'll be, good, Des, away, yes, good, yes, take it, make it good, good, not bad. Same. You play, you arrive at speed, so give him the ball, tease the defender, just before he arrives, play, and now Des, my choice will be this. The first pattern, where I just find you instantly to your feet, or if my fullback's loose, I might just go dead touch off the back foot, continue your run. Okay, and then play live, mate. You feel this? Yes, good, yes, pick him out. Perfect. Oh, come on. Yeah, good. Open out, show him the ball. Good, yes, you're in there. Pick him out. Great ball. That's brilliant. Good, Destiny, good. That's one out. Inside movement, good. Powerful touch, yes, good. Good, Dean, good finish. Good, tease him in. Play and go, good. Yes, good, take it, good. Pick him out, great ball, header. Yes, win.
Just shows you the element of work that is actually going on behind the scenes at Hotspur Way. And, again, it's, I think, great to see for a lot of fans out there. I'd implore the club to share more of that training footage to us and give us a real indication of what happens behind the scenes. Because I think when you see it actually then incorporate on a match day, it really does give fans a real genuine confidence about what they're seeing. Thank you so much to over the 7,500 at the moment. We've got you live on X, we've got you on Twitch, we've got you on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much as always for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs. I'm joined by Connor over at Levynomics 1882. Yes, we haven't got him in a suit. It means nothing is too crazy going on at the moment on Last Word on Spurs, but never say never. I can't promise Connor will be like that throughout the season, because at any moment, in typical Tottenham fashion, something will drop. Oh, and something does drop, Billie T won't be far away from that, and nor will Jason McGovern be on this show. Listen, thank you so much as always for your support. If you can keep liking, keep subscribing. We have billed the show as Up for the Cup. Our Spurs going to be up for the Cup. It is a big week for a lot of fans out there that I know have got a heritage about the Cup. And people might not know this, but I do deliberately try and pick our selections of lineups here based on who we're playing, who we're facing, and the nature of what comes next. And I know to all of us, the cups mean a lot. Jason will say I've been flip-flopping. I'm all about the league position. I would say to Jason, when you've had 4 of those and you've gone through 22 league defeats, then it does take it out of you. But Jason, to start the show, let's bring in some of the things you've very kindly done for us in the background in terms of some interesting stats about Thomas Frank and the way he's going to find the difference between managing Brentford to Tottenham, just not on the rotation aspect, but also in the Cups too. This is Brentford's record within the Premier League under Thomas Frank, and the difference Jason's going to face in terms of going from obviously 1 game a week to then 2 games a week, and obviously that's incorporating some international breaks in there too. Jason, I'll get you to unmute and give us a bit of an outline as to what you're showing us here in the show.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a criticism of Thomas Frank. It's not to compare him to anyone else. It's just purely an observation on the challenges, because I think Brentford have, I think the biggest season they've had was something like 43 games. And we know that Tottenham's minimum season this year is 48 games. And actually, if you have a look, I think from the middle of November to the middle of February, that there's 14 weeks there. We played 28 games. So, or there's 28 match dates. So that just shows you that how often we'll play twice a week in that time. And what you can see with his record at Brentford is that when he's got that gap to prepare teams, and those training drills can get done, and you can sit down with analysts and really plan your weeks out, he's actually got a really excellent record when you look at that. Overall, in that time, 44%, 52% win ratio last year for a club like Brentford is really strong. But then you see the flip side when there isn't that time, and you've got travel days and various other commitments that go on, more recovery days from twice a week. You look at how difficult it's been for him to win those games, and only 14 wins out of 62 overall in his Premier League era. Now that I'm sure you can look at that and say, well, Brentford's squad isn't as deep as some of the others, so that's not to say it can't be done, but it just highlights the problems that he's found on those double match weeks, if you like, in his time at Brentford. And then when you go to Tottenham, Rick, if you can put Tottenham up, look, and I've done the same for 4 seasons. So when you actually look at it, in 3 of those 4 seasons, except last year, Tottenham still won 50% of those games when you had only the 3 or 4 days preparation time. The one downside, obviously, is last year, but last year does come with a trophy. So what we did see, and this isn't judging last year on Ange or anything like that, what we saw last year was that the rotations came within the Premier League games to make sure we prioritise the cup games. So we got that drop off to prioritise the cup. It ends up we won that trophy, but it just shows you that under Nuno and Conte, under Conte and Mason, if you like, and under Ange first season, we still managed 50% win ratios in those double match weeks. And we're going to have to do that if we're to have a strong league season this year as well.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, we're going to bring in very shortly, actually, Jason, on the cup stats. That's, again, an intriguing fact. And I know, Bill, you actually said for you what's going to be really intriguing in this next 10, 15 games is how he does manage that rotation piece. I know we had, obviously, brilliant Jay Harris on, who obviously covered Brentford for a number of years. Obviously, he's transitioned to Spurs via The Athletic. Is this going to be really, we've said the biggest test so far, we've said he's gone to Man City, going to Brighton and the manner of those performances, but is this going to really be, Bill, the acid test? How does he manage transitioning Premier League to Champions League and then cup involvement? Because I've got 3 fans here that I know are very all passionate about us seeing us go very, very, very deep in the cups. How is he going to be able to deal with that? That's going to be key, isn't it? And how he's going to get used to the expectation from Tottenham fans, with all due respect, the difference with Brentford fans, maybe, because their priority would be maybe staying in the Premier League.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because obviously, we had that trophy last season. I don't think that's really scratched anyone's itch, though. I think it's almost made you want to win another one, right? That's certainly how I feel anyway. I want to win more trophies just off the back of it. I don't want to wait another 17 years. God, please, man. So I think the pressure still will be on. It's not like we've won the Europa League and the pressure's gone. If anything, it's ramped up because now we know what it's like to be a successful football club. We want to experience it, for real, win multiple trophies consistently. That's what we all want. So I think playing 2 games a week is not going to be easy. I think obviously we've been kind of lucky with draws this season so far. Historically, we have a pretty horrific run with cup draws in particular. We always seem to get Man City or Man United, Liverpool historically over the last few seasons. But Champions League draw is quite sweet. Obviously, Doncaster is a brilliant draw for us. So it's a good chance to rotate a little bit. He's been given a step up there, I think, with our luck of our draws so far. Champions League probably slightly easier to rotate than it might have been because we've got Bodo at home. That's a really good fixture. So I think it's a good chance for us to really get in deep in some of the competitions, hopefully.
Con, just come around to you on that point.
Bodo's away, Bill.
Oh, away, sorry, mate. Yeah.
Bodo's away, yeah.
By away. On this point, just bringing you in, Con, we keep saying this about the fact that this is now where it becomes the acid test about how Frank is going to manage, rotate, adapt the squad for the upcoming games. Do you have any concern there, Jason, sharing us those stats on screen with regards to the difference between going from the Brentford ratios of what he's had to contend with there over the last 3-4 seasons? And with Spurs, to be fair, during the period that Jason showed us here, we've had 3 or 4 different managers. So, and even still, we've kept up some degree of a ratio. Many would argue maybe it's been due to the different level of players that we've had in comparison to Brentford. But where do you sit on that for you? Will we see that instant impact straight away of Frank being able to simply manage it based on what you've seen so far? Or will it be more of a case of waiting and seeing before really assuming at this stage?
Yeah, I suspect those and Jason made the point himself. I suspect it's partly down to squad depth that's available. I mean, Brentford were massively punching above their weight, even being in the Premier League, right? So, and being a very stable Premier League team, so clearly don't have the squad depth of a Tottenham. I'm guessing, without having done it, if you looked at similar sort of lower league teams, the stats would probably be fairly similar, I would guess. So I don't particularly have a concern. The only thing I would say, sometimes, if for me, it's his biggest strength is being adaptable. But actually, what that sometimes means is if you're going to keep moving between systems and tactics, you do need time on the training pitch to embed that. So that will be interesting to see how that plays out. So I don't have a concern at the moment. I think as we spoke about earlier, I think he's managing the rotation that we have seen quite well so far. Obviously, we're not quite in the thick of playing, so often. It'll be interesting to see what team he picks against Doncaster. But yeah, Bill's right. I mean, even the Champions League draw to some extent, some of the teams we're playing.
Bar PSG, it's a Europa League draw, isn't it? It feels that way.
Yeah, it feels that way to some extent, right?
Yep.
You still got to get the results, and it's no game is easy, but we couldn't have really asked for a better draw. As you said, I mean, even the pot one team that we got at home, Dortmund, for me, I'm going into that game pretty positive and thinking we'll win that game, right? So, whereas you quite easily could have got a Bayern Munich or a Real Madrid or whatever, right? So, I think, I don't have any particular concerns right now. Injuries will be interesting, but that's. To be honest, we've got injuries now, haven't we? Right? You're missing.
Yeah, we've got. I think I said earlier, we've got 7 players currently unavailable at the moment. 7. That's obviously counting Moanu's dead leg.
Well, yeah, and look, I mean, we beat West Ham 3-0 away with what is now our 4th choice number 9, right? So he's already showing that he's got that ability, and actually, by being that sort of adaptable coach and being able to maximise the profiles you got on the pitch, hopefully he'll be able to deal with that better. So yeah, we'll see. And look, I think we all Bill touch on it. Obviously, Bilbao was amazing, fantastic night for us all. And we're all craving that more. But to some extent, with the cups, it just depends who you get, don't it? Hopefully, more ties like Doncaster at home, and we avoid Liverpool away or whatever. But
gotta say, I hope we're saying it on Thursday. I hope we're saying more times at Doncaster at home. I hope we are saying it on Thursday. Gotta tell you, otherwise I will be concerned. But even that, to be fair, Con, you got to listen. It is Doncaster, but I think again, can you afford to make 10, 11 changes? I'll ask you that shortly. Before I do, Jason, let me just whisk it round to you if I can. Do you want to make a point there, Jason, before I come back in?
I was just going to say, whilst it's a little bit of a Europa League draw, I still look at those Bordeaux and Frankfurt games. They're 2 teams that are hell-bent on putting right what went wrong for them last year. So you can see them thinking, right, we'll pick our strongest teams for Tottenham. And if we rotate in those games, then suddenly puts a different complexity. If we pick our strongest team, you expect us to go and win those games. But with a rotated team against 2 strong lineups, it's different. And even that Bordeaux game, we got to bear in mind that's a plastic pitch. We know the effect that takes out on players. With an away game at Leeds, where you want to be full physical commitment, full intensity at Leeds. So I think with Bordeaux, for instance, I can see there being. I'd be surprised if it's Romero and Van der Ven this year that play in that game. I think we'll see rotations in midfield and that. So it's whether we're good enough with a rotated team to go and beat those best teams. And that's the little bit of just concern I've got in my mind. But those 2 teams are hell-bent on showing a better result than they got against us last year.
Again, what we're going to show now is not to scare anyone or worry anyone. Just feels like I've got to say that before I do share this next slide that Jason's very kindly produced. This is Thomas Frank's record and the domestic cups at Brentford. And for listeners on audio, we've highlighted obviously the wins that he's had in there. We've obviously highlighted as well the defeats he's had on there. Jace, do you mind if I come over to you to maybe outline, maybe for listeners on audio, the ones that they need to be aware of and why nothing should be granted? It's a different level with different teams, but maybe highlight some things on there that people need to know for listeners on audio.
Yeah, and again, this is not a criticism of him, and I suppose you do have to probably build in that Brentford are hell-bent on Premier League survival. Although, interestingly, a couple of Brentford fans will say that the last couple of seasons they would have liked to have seen a little bit more progression on that front. But those domestic cups in the 4 seasons under Thomas Frank, the teams he's beaten have only ever been lower league clubs, and his record against the Premier League clubs in 6 cup ties, he's lost all 6 against Premier League clubs, and he's also gone out at home to Gillingham and Plymouth. So we certainly don't want to go at home to Doncaster Rovers. But again, it maybe highlights that maybe their rotation wasn't as strong. But don't forget, in some of those, certainly in those League Cup ties, the West Hams, the Evertons and that will have also squad rotated. So again, it just shows the demands that he's got, and that if that's the record of us in 4 years' time, we won't be sitting there too happy, will it?
I think you're on mute, mate.
You got me? Hello.
I think you're muted, Rick. I thought it was me at first.
Me too, mate. I thought it was me. That's why I didn't say anything.
Yeah. I was really confused.
That's why I came out of the show. I thought it was muted.
You got me, guys? Have you got me? I'm not sure you got me there.
I've never seen you mute before.
The whole time, Rick, I think you're on mute. I thought it was me, and because I saw it looked like Jason was nodding, so I was like,
"That's exactly it, mate. That's exactly what I
did." Forgive me. I'm saying, given the expectation. Go on, Jason.
Can I just ask you, Rick, before I accuse you of flip-flop, what is it this year? How many losses justify a cup win?
How many losses justify a cup win?
Justify a cup win.
Less than 22, that's for sure. But it depends which cup. But I think this is what I was saying to you last season. I meant this all due respect. I didn't see a reason why we couldn't maybe have.
Put it a different way.
Go
on. Put it a different way. The week where we have Arsenal away, Inter Milan away in the Champions League, followed by Liverpool home.
We've got Arsenal, PSG. We've got Arsenal, PSG, Chelsea in a week.
But in that. When it gets to the knockout stages, if you like, when it comes to the after Christmas, that week, are you
asking me?
You've got Arsenal at home, Inter Milan. Which game are you rotating and risking?
I don't think you can risk players for Arsenal, regardless of wherever that is. But at the same time, your question you were asking me was how many losses justify a trophy. Other than that mindset, I'm just going to mute you just for the background audio, and you can go and come back in. Why can't we be a club that has 10, 12, 15 losses, 10, 12 losses, but still at the same time be able to compete in a cup? I don't know why you can't have both. And I think the great example that showed it last season for me was Newcastle. Newcastle won the Carabao Cup in, I think, forgive me, it was February, March, and actually went on to have a really strong finish and actually get a Champions League place. And if anything, that cup, pardon the pun, really spurred them on. So look, because I was with you for that entire week. We were at the stadium together. We was at the parade together. It was one of the best weeks of my life. And I don't take anything. I will make this clear. I don't take anything back of last season. No matter how I felt about Ange, he gave me one of the best weeks of my supporting life. That's why since I've come back on here and Ange has departed, I've only ever been grateful. I've not disrespected him or said anything untowards against him. But I just, as you know, last season, there were so many green flags for me that it's very hard when you do these shows week in, week out, and you watch the games, and sometimes you watch them back before you do the shows. It's very, very hard to go through that. My answer back to you would be, I would happily stomach 10, 12 losses if it meant we could be competitive in both. But I think Newcastle has showed us, Jace, you can do both. You can win a trophy, and you can sustainably go on and compete in the top 4 and get in the Champions League. As Jason is writing this down like he's a officer of the police over there for me. Bill, what do you think? Tell me. I mean, can we do both? Can we balance both?
Well, of course you can, but
is it not realistic? Is it not realistic with the squad we've got?
I wouldn't say it's not realistic, but you have to. It's a very difficult thing to do. If you look at Liverpool last season, they won 1 trophy. Absolutely amazing team. They couldn't do it. Arsenal have not won a trophy in 6 years. They can't do it. Man City won the treble a few years ago, but that's Man City, one of the most expensive teams ever assembled. So it's not an easy thing you're asking people to do, is to compete on multiple fronts. But we're actually spending a bit more now on the squad. I wouldn't personally say that the squad have the quality of being able to compete, at the very top end of both levels. Competing for the league and Champions League at the same time. I doubt we're anywhere near that level yet, but we'd have a go at least.
I think it depends.
And I think
it
Carabao
depends how
Cup
you define.
is a good start for that as well.
Sorry.
No, carry on, mate. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just. It depends how you define competing, right? Because winning multiple trophies is obviously ridiculously hard, but you shouldn't have to finish 17th to win a trophy. To the point you're making, Rick. And I think
top 5 in a trophy is really right.
Exactly. I think, and I don't think it's a sustainable way of thinking about the football club to say we're just going to go all out to win trophies, because anything can happen in one game, or you can draw Liverpool away or whatever, right? I think the way that you sort of see that sustained success is by building a football club that, wins more than it loses generally. And then hopefully that sort of breeds into everything. But it is obviously because we had such, I always spin this question back the other way to people. I think the reason why we're so on that is because we didn't win a trophy for 17 years. I think if I ask you again, do you want to live that season again to just win a League Cup? Say, for me personally, I don't. Even though obviously winning a trophy is the ultimate outcome of football, but I just can't keep going to the stadium.
Would you live that season for a Champions League?
Oh God, yeah.
That's different because we've never won one, right? And the Champions League so huge. Yes, I would. Yes, I would. But this is the problem this year. We don't have that get out of jail free in terms of the Europa League, right? So.
This is Jason's fault we've been having this conversation. Jason was the one that posted devil's advocate. I didn't want this conversation, but now we're on that point. I agree with you, Connor. I don't see a reason why, and I'll let you finish off on there. This is really important that a club like Tottenham, now with the squad we've got, and I agree with you, for the sake of a League Cup like Newcastle have done and showed last season, Newcastle also had inadequacies in their squad, but they still won the cup. And if anything, what I liked about the way they mentality was they didn't dip after it. What was quite interesting, I think, with us when you go back to the way we won it against under Ramos. If anything, we had a couple of crazy games after. I think we had a 4-4 against Chelsea, didn't we? But we never seemed to recover after winning that cup. Do you think winning a cup mid-season? It is a Carabao Cup game we've got in. Can it actually do the opposite and spur on the season, pardon the pun, rather than have an adverse effect?
I think so. You'd hope that would be the impact. I think we're not yet at the stage, are we, under Frank and touch with this brand new ownership, the Lewis family, will act different in consistent windows to come, right? Than what we've seen for the last 24 years. That actually gives the manager the best chance of competing properly in all competitions on a sustained basis. But I think we get a fortunate draw in the League Cup. There's no reason why we can't win it. I also think, to be fair, if we do get one of the bigger boys, the way Frank sets teams up, he is good against stronger teams, right? So there is, we saw that against PSG. I know we didn't quite get there, but almost did. And Man City, obviously, we did see it. And look, PSG were the best team in the world, right? So I think I think it just depends on who you get, right? And but this year, I want to see progress, right? We've now got the monkey off our back in terms of winning the trophy. Hopefully, we get a fortunate Cup one run and win something else. But more than anything, I want to see us progressing to be a team that can actually deliver sustained success and not feel like I'm going to the stadium every other week to watch us lose, at home to the likes of Ipswich and Leicester.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, I got to say, I think for those out there, and I don't listen. Jason can defend himself as much as I don't need to defend him because he don't really defend me on this show. I don't think Jason's advocating 22 defeats for a trophy, but I think just to bring you back in, Jace, we say this so often that the reason why the League Cup and the FA Cup is so hard to win is because you're going to have to knock out one of, if not more than one, of those big boys along the way, the likes of an Arsenal, a Chelsea, a Liverpool, a City, a United. Does this make this actually harder than what it would be to win and it's not to do down the Europa League. I mean, because again, I know people seem to think last season we got some people outside of Spurs thought the group was very lucky and the teams we faced really the best ever Frankfurt.
Champions League mainstays Karabakh now, mate. They won at midweek, didn't they?
They've changed the game. They've changed the script. But I mean, do you agree, Jason? I mean, is it harder to win the League Cup and FA Cup rather than the Europa League, or do you not buy that, Jace?
I don't know. It's harder because you're only going to play. Well, I mean, the League Cup you can win in 5 games, can't you?
Yeah.
So, whereas the Europa League you got to play minimum 15.
Yeah.
Plus all the fact that you are midweek for 15 of those weeks on the back of a Premier League game and things. So I wouldn't say it's simple. I think just for us, no team can sit there and say you've got a divine right to win a trophy, and just because we've done it last year, we haven't got a right to do it this year. Although I'm with Billy. Now we've got a taste for it. I don't want to wait 17 years. And, the general perception is we have got a far better manager now. And therefore, it's no good just talking about us having a better manager. He will have to show that he's a better manager and at least pick up some kind of silverware in his time at Tottenham. But, I think what we can't do now, in fairness to Ange, when you look at the past 4 years or the 2 years under him, we got done by Liverpool away in a semi-final. We got done by Aston Villa away that finished 5th or 6th and were in brilliant form. We got done by Manchester City at home, and we got done by Fulham away in the first week of a season where he changed 11. But Fulham are a Premier League side, in fairness, and we lost out on penalties. What we can't do is go out to Sheffield United and go out to Middlesbrough and go out to Colchester and go out at home to a relegated Norwich and things like that.
We can't go out to Doncaster either. We can't go out to Doncaster.
No, and we can't go out to Doncaster, exactly. And I mean, Norwich were a Premier League team, but they rotated and chucked their whole thing for survival and still beat us under a Mourinho side at home when Eric Dyer went into the crowd, wasn't it? So, if Tottenham even if it's horrible to think it, if you get knocked out by Arsenal, nobody wants to go out to them, but in the strange way, I'd sooner lose to Arsenal than I would do to Sheffield United, put it that way. It's harder to accept on the night, but you don't look an idiot getting knocked out by a decent side. So that's the key for Thomas Frank. When you look at that list, you can't be knocked out by Gillingham at home and Plymouth at home and things like that. That's for sure.
Well, I already know, this is, again, not the blow trumpet here. I know a lot of Frank staff are already watching the show on a weekly basis. I would hope that when they are seeing this is a early warning. Cups do matter to Spurs fans. And listen, I don't speak for all Spurs fans. I would never want to come across like that. But I know a lot of Tottenham fans out there do want to see the club take the Cups really, really seriously. And I do remember, even when Ange made that great start after the first 10 games, actually in between those 10 games, and he crashed out against Fulham. And yes, it was on penalties. There was still, Jason, if you remember, there's a lot. I think you did the show that night. There was a lot of negative reaction by, I think we made 8-9 changes on the night. And he said it's because he needed to see a lot of the players. This again for Frank, he will make changes, but you've got to get the right team, got to get the right result, got to go through.
Yeah, it's not just the fans, Rick. What you got to bear in mind is that when we sacked Ange Postecoglou and brought Thomas Frank in, the club, not the supporters, the club said we want to compete on multiple fronts. Therefore, it's the club that's saying the cups are important. And, in Poch's time, most people loved what Poch did for the football club. But one of the few times he really put his foot in it was when he said trophies are for egos. When we weren't winning. And, most people, I know, Rick, you're a massive Poch fan. I enjoyed the football under Poch. We looked solid. We were competing at the top end of the Premier League. We weren't losing 22 games, but we were still peed out we were still paid off to get knocked out of a cup by Crystal Palace twice,
Colchester
by Colchester, by teams like that. So it's not just the fans that want those cups to be important.
How do you think he'll manage this, Con? You know, we keep going back to that point, isn't it? The difference between Tottenham and Brentford, the expectation at Brentford, and I mean, it's all due respect. Maybe apart from what Jason was referring to there in the kind of last season, was staying in the Premier League being the number one focus. And look, you are not on the back pages to some degree, maybe, is what you would be at Tottenham if you do get knocked out by Newcastle, certainly against Plymouth. You are on the back pages, I think. Even if you are the Brentford manager, I think you are on the back pages. But do you think you understand that and get that very early, Con, about what the fans are expecting? As Jason said there, because that wasn't a Thomas Frank thing. That is what the club have said. The reason for changing the manager was we have to fight on all four fronts. And that's what's been very clear from why they went for Frank and didn't give Ange that third season.
Yeah, I think the Fulham example, I was at that game when we made all of those changes. I think there's a difference between playing Fulham away and playing Doncaster at home, to be fair, right? Fulham away is a tough game anyway. And I think we played them just after they put in a really top performance against Arsenal from memory, and I think they ended up drawing that game. But then we played them, obviously went out on pens, and I was there, and I was super disappointed to see the number of changes that were made. However, I think with Doncaster at home, we're all talking about the fact that rotation is going to be important and how injuries have impacted us. We do need to make significant changes. Again. Like, I don't want to see Kudus, Romero, Van der Ven playing against Doncaster, and I won't be a hindsight merchant. And if God forbid something awful happens, say, why didn't he pick those sort of players? Because the guys that they're bringing in should be able to beat Doncaster at home. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And I think the other difference is, to be fair, I was chatting to my dad about this earlier on the phone, was now when I look, maybe it's recency bias or whatever, but when I look at the squad now and I look at the players who would play against Doncaster versus when we used to rest players and play against Colchester or whoever, I do think there is a step up in quality now. And this is probably the reason why, with the top squads in the League Cup, you are seeing the same sort of teams get to the semi-finals and the final of the League Cup every year, because, squad depth has just improved for Premier League teams. So, even if we make 11 changes against Doncaster, you're still going to be playing internationals, right? We've got so many internationals in this squad, so I do think it's slightly different probably to what it was under even Poch, which is pretty recent history. I'm confident we'll beat Doncaster comfortably. Don't want to eat my words on that, but I think we will.
I just also say that it's likely that Doncaster will rotate some as well, in fairness, because any of those teams now outside the Premier League, when you've got a 46 league game season, which from the Championship and the EFL divisions, there's 46 league games in a season, that they'll look at that and think we're not likely to win the Carabao Cup. It'd be nice if we were to go to Tottenham and get an upset, but I think you'll be surprised if they pick their strongest team. If we were going up there for it, they might make 2 or 3 changes, but I'm sure they'll make 5 or 6 changes themselves at least.
It's quite interesting. I mean, there's a great point here from Lee Richards, who's a regular viewer and listener. Lee, thanks for this. Lee says here, Tottenham won League Cup semi-finals in 2019, finalists in 2021, semi-finalists in 2022, semi-finalists in 2025. I think that shows that we are a club that takes this cup very, very seriously. Do you think, Bill, that will again be that message fed down to Frank about how important these cups are? If he doesn't know it already, to be fair to Frank, he has said a lot in his press conferences about how important cups are. I'm sure he's going to understand it very quickly, right, Spurs fans, and how much
I think it's different. I definitely understand where that guy's coming from, but you have to also put into context that was in the middle of a 17-year, or was at the end of a 17-year trophy drought. Like, the fan base and everyone around the club has been obsessed with trophies during that drought. So it might change slightly. You'd imagine, it's not something that it's not like the end of. It's not like something that the end's to mean anymore. It's like something that we want to do. So I do think I've seen a lot of semi-finals and finals of it. One thing missing for me in my lifetime, I've never been in an FA Cup final. For a team that we used to win the FA Cup, we were the record holders 8 times or Arsenal, whatever it was, until Arsenal beat us for it.
Crazy.
I want to get into an FA Cup final.
That.
I haven't been in one since 1991. Which is mad. So that would be a big change for me. I think, it's fair to say we've had pretty decent runs in the Carabao over the last 20 years. I'd say the FA Cup's been a bit disappointing. A couple of semi-finals here and there. No final in my lifetime, so not good enough. Yeah.
On that point, in terms of players that we probably will see be given an opportunity, obviously Archie Gray would be one. He had a bright little cameo at the weekend. Obviously for Archie, it's an opportunity to play games. Brennan Johnson, to be fair, he's been on the bench a number of occasions. Will Brennan come into this game? Maybe you think so. It's an opportunity for him. Callum Awani will obviously hear more from Frank before the game where he holds his presser, where at the moment he will obviously miss the weekend game with a dead leg. For those that didn't hear what I said at the beginning, I think the guy's missed one game in the last 2.5 years. So in typical Tottenham fashion, yes, Callum Awani had a dead leg. And one player I've got to ask you guys quickly on, just to see if you feel he will be given a reprieve and maybe brought back into this game and how he does get reintegrated, is Yves Bissouma, where frankly he holds no hard feelings towards Biss after, of course, his failed move didn't materialise on deadline day, either to Galatasaray or to other reported clubs that were interested in the time. Frank says, look, there are no hard feelings, not before, not now, and not after. As long as he trains well, everyone has the opportunity here. He's just started to run outside, so he's not part of the group. But anything I've seen, when I've said hello to him and every day with the players, he seems good. Just intrigued to know, guys, how you see this playing out. And then the last time we had you on, Con, you called him a clown. Look, we know he's not been a great servant so far in terms of what the misdemeanors that he's had at the club. He was filmed inhaling nitrous oxide last summer. That brought a 1-game suspension. He then turned up late again under a new manager in Thomas Frank. Done the same under Ange, Conte as well. Is there any way back for Yves Bissouma in these next few months, at least until January? Can you see him being reintegrated? Because Frank is saying he holds no hard feelings.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, look, for me, maybe it's because I'm a fan, but it should be an absolute privilege to play for this football club, and you should be doing your utmost to be professional, particularly when you're earning the money that you do as a professional footballer. And I think I said you're right. I said he was a clown. I also said I would rip up his contract if we didn't sell him. So, I probably have to be consistent with my hardline messaging there to say I don't think he deserves to be reintegrated and played above the likes of Archie Gray, for example, who would be the person he would potentially be competing with for that 6th position. So, and look, he obviously isn't ready for Wednesday anyway, by the sounds of it, with him being injured. So, thankfully, I don't really need to tell you whether he should play or not, but I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't reintegrate him. I think he's massively let himself down, as I said before, and let his teammates down. And I just don't think it's the right example to set. So, yeah, I'm still consistently happy with my previous view, which is I'd be happy to rip his contract up.
Okay, and just follow on from me, Con. Anyone you want to see be given an opportunity to that maybe want to think of? I mean, maybe Tell, Kinski, anyone out there you feel will be nailed on for this one that hasn't had minutes so far?
Yeah, look, I think I'm hoping with Muani, it's just he wasn't up to full fitness, and then they didn't want to risk him with a dead leg rather than it being anything bigger than that. And would really, really like to see Muani play, just because it's the perfect sort of game to try and get some fitness, right? So for me, definitely him. I think Kinski will play. As I said, I want Romero, Van der Ven, Kudus all rotated. Gray should play in the 6th. You don't need to be playing Paulino in that game. So yeah, I think a number of changes. Obviously, there's certain positions where we're probably, they're probably still going to have to play one of the 3 fullbacks, aren't they? Spence, Porro, or Udogie, just because of numbers.
Does Davies come in, Con? Does Davies come in?
Probably has to, doesn't he? If you want to rotate both Romero and Van der Ven, because you probably go Danso Davis right now with Dragishin not available, Takai still not fully fit. So I would, I mean, Ben Davies is a lot of things, but he should be able to deal with Doncaster, and then I would like to see Williams Barnett just on the bench. I don't think he should start because he's. But if we're winning 2 or 3-0, giving him that opportunity, because he clearly looks, he's a ridiculous level for under 21s, and I think just getting that experience of playing against men will be quite helpful.
Yeah, it's no disrespect to Ben Davies, but you kind of get famous last lines, famous last words. We should be fine with Ben. We should be fine. Bill, for you, any big changes or changes you'd like to see that could give Frank a real insight into whether these players are good enough to come into the Premier League, Champions League team? What's going to be a busy next set of fixtures to come?
I don't think Frank will learn a lot from it, to be honest, against League 2 opposition. But I like to see some players like Moani and Tell make a start and get some goals. I think Tell definitely needs a goal of the season for some confidence. Moani, it'd be great to see him play. And other than that, it's just about the youngsters for me. I'd love to see Luca get 15, 20 minutes at the end, something like that, just to make it exciting. But I think Connor made a really good point. Our second string front three is like Odebear, Tell, and Moani at the moment. That's like a France under 21 forward line. So it's again famous last words, but that should absolutely smash Doncaster.
Bill, we'll see you next week.
Hopefully not on Thursday after we lost. So I just said that.
No, we're giving that one the graveyard shift. Jason's come to you just on that. In terms of changes, I'm intrigued to know, give me a number. How many are you expecting? Can you see a full 10-11 here? Can you see as many as 10-11? Because that, again, is... I don't remember the last time we've rotated 11 players for a Carabao Cup game. I think we did 9 against Fulham, 8 or 9. Forgive me, I know Con was there a couple of years ago. What do you think?
I think you'll see 9 again, 8, 9 at least. I think you're right. Davis and Danso need starts. They've not started a Premier League game, have they? Destiny probably will hold his place because he's only had 1 start, and that will enable Spence to take over from Pedro Porro at right back. So you've done a little bit of rotation with them. I think Kinski's in goal. Archie Gray will start. Front 3, Muani, Tell, Johnson, or Odebear, Tell, Johnson, or something like that. I'd be surprised if they risk Richie. We already know Dom isn't going to start that game, isn't he? So from his presser at the weekend. So I think there'll certainly be 9. I think maybe Gray Bentancur will be in midfield, and then he may play with 3 or 4 front players. But there'll be 9 changes at least, I think, from the Brighton game. But like Connor said, I want to see Williams Barnett just be on that bench, and maybe Janai Byfield or somewhere like that. If you get into that position where you've got yourself into a good lead, then you can always switch Ben Davis as one of the fullbacks and let one of the kids come in at centre half, and let Byfield play at the back, or let Williams Barnett play at the 10 if you get to 2-3-0 up with 20 minutes to go.
Yeah. Just on that point, Frank has already ruled out Dominic Solanke. For those that aren't aware, Dominic Solanke will not be fit for this one. It is concerning with Dominic Solanke because I know when me and Bill spoke on deadline day, there was a concern about whether he would need surgery or not. And here we are now, we're 21 days on. Still no update on Solanke. All we knew that he was, according to Bridgie, obviously he was here with us last week. He was back on the grass, but training individually. Not going to make this one. Kota Sakai, who was the only player that on these images that we show seems to be getting younger every time we show him. Ironically, really, I mean, he gets any younger. I'm not sure he'll be able to play for us at this point. But he does exist, by the way. We did sign him. He's expected to be back in training later this week, but probably this game does come too soon. But final question to you all guys, a very kind of one-liner question. Given we've all said how important the Cups are this season, give me an indication, how deep do we need to go for Frank to see it as being a respectable season? Premier League, we've started quite well, but what do you want to see cup-wise in terms of how deep we go for it to be seen as a real good first season under Frank? Does he need to win something? We'll start with you, Bill.
I think cup runs essentially mean nothing if you don't win them. So I think if he doesn't win any cups, or obviously if you make like a Champions League final, that's slightly different. It's a bit more prestige, but I don't think you ever remember the cup runs if you don't win them. So if he gets no cups, then he'll have to finish top 6 to be a good season, I think. If he gets a cup, then it's the cup and anywhere above 6 is a brilliant season. If he doesn't get a cup, I think we probably have to be in the Champions League to be a really good season. So I want to see a cup.
He wants to see a cup. He's got the itch. Bill, you're a star. We're going to see you back with us next week. Listen, hopefully Spurs have progressed. They're in the hat and there's nothing to be too concerned about. Thank you so much. Jason, we come to you. Easy one to end on. What is the expectations? You said earlier that if you get knocked out by a top 4, top 5 side, that maybe there's a little bit of a understanding with that. What does it need to do for you in terms of it to be seen a decent first season in charge?
It's difficult to talk about it because, as you say, you do need that little bit of luck with the draw. But I think what we don't want is to be out of every cup competition come the end of January. That's what we can't do. We want to be going into
Man United are only into now
to late March, April or something.
That's a great point.
Late March, April time, we still a chance to win something. And we saw last year it was a horrific season in the league, but you still had that hope of winning something, so that you thought, right, okay, we're losing game after game after game, but you still got that little hope. What we can't do is, because I don't think any of us think we can win the Premier League this season, that's for sure. So we can't be out of cup competitions by, like I say, the end of January or early February or something like that. That's for sure.
I mean, Lee's back next week, so that might be a different to him. I mean, he might have a different answer to that question in terms of the league, that is. But I think you make a point there. It's going to be interesting how they do work that out and who they draw. And like Bill said earlier, Villa already out of the Carabao, United already out of the Carabao, two sides that would have, you thought, looked to take it fairly seriously. Again, a nice easy one to close on, really. I feel like a bit of a hospital ball, this one. What is seen as success in terms of these domestic cups? Because I know fans like you, bless you, to go to Fulham away, you would have gone there a couple of years ago under Ange, thinking we would have gone through. That's how much fans care about this club being in those domestic cups. I know from all three of you on here, they mean a lot to us. Contrary to what Jason said about me last season. What do you think, Con?
Yeah, I think with the Champions League, we absolutely have to finish top 24, particularly with the draw we've got. And I think we've got actually an outside chance now of finishing top 8 because of the draw that we've got. So, yeah, and then it depends who you draw, right? I mean, Real Madrid, PSG, and Man City were in that knockout game from the Champions League last season. So, that is hugely dependent on that. But we absolutely should be getting through that. And then look, the guys have said it. No cups. No one remembers the run. For me, it was the point that Jason made earlier, which was, I just don't want to see us go out to a team where you go, we should be absolutely beating this team. So if we are to draw Liverpool away and we go out to Liverpool away, I think most people will go, fair enough. But and Jason made another good point, which is, you don't want to get into that where, like you're saying with United, the season sort of, you're not going to win the league, and it feels like it just goes out with a sort of damp squib, right? So, but I wouldn't put an expectation on it because I don't think we're ready yet, and it's Frank's first year. I don't think we're in that position where we can say, we have to win a cup, because right now there's teams that are better equipped than us to win a cup. Whereas last year, I think when we were in the Europa, I think most fans were quite positive before we went into that cup that we would win it. Obviously you got to go and do the business.
Of course you have. Yeah.
But we were the favourites with the bookies, along with Man United, and so whereas we don't have that this year. We won't be the favourites for the Carabao. We'll be 4th or 5th, the same in the FA Cup, and then obviously the Champions League will be 9th or 10th or something like that, right? So I don't think you can have that expectation, but fingers crossed. And then obviously league position, if we don't win a cup, needs to be, as we say, I think 5th would be a brilliant season. 6th is sort of good and good progress.
Yeah. Is it weird comping on him when it's fairly calm at the moment?
It's nice, mate. It's nice. I think it's nice to be on, and it's nice to be to be positive. It felt like we were coming on in the summer, and I try and be a positive person in life generally. And so, when you're talking about Tottenham, it's been a bit difficult to be that other than Bilbao. So it is nice to come on and be a bit more positive.
Con, you're a star. We're going to see you back very, very soon. Make sure you go follow Connor over at Leavenomics 1882. Con, where can people find the podcast you do? Let everyone know where they can find it.
Yeah, Grumpy Old Spurs, which is on the Lads It's Tottenham YouTube page. So we do that on a Monday. But even we are joking. I mean, the title's Grumpy Old Spurs. But
that was me most of last season.
Exactly. So I think Monday nights are 8:30. But thank you.
You're a star, mate. Been a pleasure. Love to see you as always. We look forward to seeing you soon. I keep saying I've been Grumpy Old Spurs last season, but people keep stopping me in the street saying to me, God, you just seem so happy now at the start of podcast. I said, look, I keep saying this, just get a match week 10, let's get past Chelsea, right? Then we'll have a conversation. I keep being buoyed by the fact it's a 5:30 now, it's been moved to. And the last time at a 5:30 against Chelsea, we smashed them, of course, at home. That great game from Harry Kane, if we remember back under Poch, where we beat Mourinho. So hopefully there's a true spirit of that one. Bill, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Is it weird, Bill, being on a more calmer setting at the moment?
Mate, I can't wait for January. Get that transfer window open. That's what I'm here for. You know that.
What makes me laugh is you want to open it. Jason wants to shut it. He's away for most of it. So there you go. Wouldn't have it any way different. We got those late nights still to come, Con. All the misses. We'll have those late nights back. Con, you're a star. Bill, you're a star. And Jace, enjoying a slight element of a bit more calmness at the moment. We know with Tottenham, never know what to expect.
It's domestic cup week, mate, but more importantly, it's Ryder Cup week. So my focus is on Bethpage next Friday. 12, I think first tee off 12:30 in the UK time, lunchtime. So my focus is on Ryder Cup week, mate.
There you go. That's where I go wrong. Jason's got other priorities in life. It isn't just all Tottenham. It's other priorities, and Con was nodding away there as well. But I know Con's priorities are only Spurs, and it is Jason as well. Guys, there you go. It's a big week. It is Cup week. You've had it all from us there in terms of what you've got to know, how we've got to do it, and what we've got to avoid. So it's all eyes on to Doncaster from the wonderful Connor at Leaving-Nomics 1882, from Billie T, King of X, and from Jason McGovern, telling you all you need to know. We've been the last one on Spurs. Keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on, you Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. We'll go again with that. Come on, you